Lurking in the sound of Hanoi's everyday life, Gia-Lam Works sunken, like a silent giant, solemnly and tiringly, watching the world it had known for a century rushing by. Once considered one of the three Vietnam Great Railway factories, now rusting away in the nostalgia of its former glory day, it seems the Gia-Lam train factory is waiting for its very own last train ride to the sunset. The story of Gia-Lam train factory trailed all the way back to the early years of French Indochina and the Railway of Yunnan. A brainchild of Governor General of French Indochina Jean-Marquis de Lanessan and managerial labor of Governor General Paul Dumais, the extravagant project, which aspired to be the backbone of Indochina, was conceived. Stretching 855 kilometers, connecting Haiphong and Kunming by 1910, and another 1,726 kilometers, connecting Hanoi and Saigon by 1936. The French colonial mission civilization in the colonies like Vietnam was not just about an idea. It demanded resources, both human and goods, and more importantly, a controlled, organized flux of capitals flowing past mountains and rivers on the metal circulatory system of the colonial lands. To ensure that the trains flew smoothly on such a massive infrastructure network, train workshops or factories were constructed strategically throughout Vietnam as places for engine maintenance and manufacturing. Among the first workshops in 1905, Gia-Lam Works was built at the intersection of four northern train routes, close proximity from the administrative colonial Hanoi, facilitating high connectivity with the neighboring region. In steam and metal, Gia-Lam Works became a place for a diverse range of workers, laboring their sweat and blood to earn a living under the oversight of its foreign owners. Carrying on for the next 3.5 decades, its operation ran full steam as the engine were repaired, metal was melted, machine parts were forged, timbers were cut, carriages were built. The fast modernization, as often the driver for colonialization, seemed to be in the air. However, the poor working condition of the factory workers, laboring their days assembling metal pieces and operating heavy machineries, was reaching a boiling point. Frustration and anger spilled into the murky ground as the owner and worker disputed over employment terms, resulting in collective protest, worker strike, and even a radical bombing of the famous Metropole Hotel, resulting in chaos, death, and destruction. Serious as it was, the condition of the Gia-Lam Works and its inherent internal tension during the colonial period seldomly took the center stage of the media nor the public. In its place reigned the propagation of colonial success story, of newly built architectural marvels, as well as the knowledge dissemination of the new exotic land via tourism. The expansion of the colonial railway network during this period contributed to the Occidental-Oriental narrative in the Far East and facilitated the distinction between the primitive local and the cultural foreigner. Exhibited widely, and particularly a tourism section in Exposition de Hanoi, the train line of Yunnan, as shown in the Indo-Chinese map, pierced through the provincial land, promising the great adventure with wonderful scenery filled with local ethnicity, particularly women, who were often objectified and photographed in either their traditional colorful clothing or naked bare chest. Taking part in these incursions were the mainly Westerner, settling in an often calm, quiet, and spacious first-class carriage, reading newspapers, and enjoying their luxurious meals. A civilized scene, indeed in contrast to the segregated fourth-class carriage, where the local reside together with goods and luggage. This segregation was subtle and was also commonly found in Indochina during this time, such as the zoning in Hanoi urban planning at the beginning of the 20th century that clearly divide the old quarters and the foreign quarters in the name of order, way of life, and hygiene. The railway infrastructure in Vietnam was disrupted immensely, subsequently, first in the Second World War and the Second Indochina War. After taking over Vietnam in September 1940, Japan quickly occupied and reappropriated the Gia-Lam Works to serve its military invasion. The factory's production was forced to switch to bomb and weapon under the demand of the Japanese army. To avoid further destruction and economic loss, in 1943, the workshop's French owners decided to move much of its machinery and skilled workers to Dong Anh to set up another production facility, effectively laying off many of its workforces who were not chosen. Once a busy workshop, Gia-Lam Works became inactive and returned to moderate production only once in the next decade. In 1954, the Gia-Lam Works entered a new chapter of its story. After the Geneva Accord had been signed, the North Vietnamese government had two major tasks at hand: building the country towards socialism and liberating the South. After retaking Hanoi, together with many other colonial production facilities, the new government got to work. Immediately, in October, with the machinery seized from the French owner, the Gia-Lam Works, under the new governance, resumed its operation with a production strength of 430 workers. This time around, more than just a production facility, Gia-Lam Works took on a new symbolizing roles in North Vietnam's independence period and cultivated the mobility of cultures and ideologies that shaped Vietnamese subjectivity. Capitalizing on the industrial and machinery setting, Gia-Lam Works served as the esteemed ground where important directives were passed among the Vietnamese people. The factory was used as a site where President Ho Chi Minh reinforced the message of solidarity and resilience in 1955, and to raise people's morale in response to the alleged 1958 Phu Lợi massacre by the Diem's government. To push it further, the lubrication of ideology was imprinted onto the very outputs, the engines, that were produced out of the Gia-Lam Works. They were civilly weaponized. In 1959, Engine 309 was repaired in 120 days and named Phu Lợi to broadcast the reminder of Phu Lợi atrocity wherever it went. In 1960, the first diesel rail car, researched, designed, and manufactured by Gia-Lam's workers, was named Độc Lập, a subtle gesture to signify progress and a desire for separation from external power. The strategy was employed again strategically during the 1960s throughout major military clashes between the Americans and the North Vietnam Army. The Tự Lực engine was renamed Nguyễn Văn Trỗi, carrying with it the Northern hero's message of undying spirit during adversity, and traveled everywhere under the American heavy bombing throughout the 1960s into the 1970s, which shattered and demolished the majority of Gia-Lam Works itself. A tug of war between the American bombing and the Nguyễn Văn Trỗi train eventually ended with the Vietnamese success. Nguyễn Văn Trỗi carried on its journey on rail well into the late 1970s, even after the country's reunification, appearing in other peacetime major occasions, particularly the inauguration of the rebuilt of Gia-Lam Works with the assistance of the Polish government before taking it rest. Gia-Lam Works continued to operate until the present. However, the pressure of free market gradually etches the factory out of its operation. No more workers' movement that bring about solidarity, nor name engines that remind people of solidarity, share hardship, and perseverance. All that is left is simply a sawtooth roof metal shell waiting to be wiped out. And with it, all historical meanings that once were.